morning, children. This is Father Don. I hope you guys are all doing wonderful in your homes. I know it's tough when you can't go out and play with all your friends and go to all the activities that you used to be doing. And so I wanted to send you a video message and to encourage you to keep learning and reading and praying. And I wanted to share a special book with you. I'm sure many of you have heard it before. It's one of my favorites, and I think it will help us to think about what truly is important at this time in our lives. So the book I'm going to read is called The Tale of Three Trees. It is a traditional folk tale retold by Angela Elwell Hunt and illustrated by Tim Junke. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. So we have our three white trees up on top of the mountaintop. The first tree looked up at the stars twinkling like diamonds above him. I want to hold treasure, he said. I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world. And do you see this tree? He's looking up at the stars and he's imagining the stars like a treasure chest, something beautiful that he's going to become. The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by the way to the ocean. I want to be a strong sailing ship, he said. I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world. The third little tree looked down into the valley below, where busy men and busy women worked in a busy town. I don't want to leave this mountaintop at all, she said. I want to grow so tall that when people stop to look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world. So all three of these trees have special dreams that they had from their youth when they were kids about what they wanted to be. Years passed. The rains came, the sun shone, and the little trees grew tall. One day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest, thought the first tree. I shall hold wonderful treasure. The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It is perfect for me." With a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. Now I shall sail mighty waters, thought the second tree. I shall be a strong ship, fit for kings. The third tree felt her heart sink when the last woodcutter looked her way. She stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. Any kind of tree will do for me, he muttered. With a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. Now at this part of the story, the first two trees thinks their dreams are coming true. They think they're going to become exactly what they thought they were going to be. But the third tree is thinking, it's all over. I'll never be able to point to God like I thought I was going to be. And so that often happens with dreams. Sometimes we think they're all coming true, and other times we think they'll never come true. But God has special plans for us, as we will see with the story of these trees. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to a carpenter's shop. But the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard. But no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat. Too small and too weak to sail an ocean or even a river, he was taken to a little lake. Every day, he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. So both these first two trees, now their dreams aren't working out the way they thought they were going to either. That can be very depressing when our plans fall apart. But God still has good things planned for us, as we shall see. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumberyard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was to stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Boy, this tree people have now forgotten about. He's just been cut up, tossed to the side. Nobody even remembers him. That would be sad, wouldn't it? I bet some of you really miss your friends and wonder if they've forgotten about you. But we know we haven't. The teachers haven't forgotten you. Your friends haven't forgotten you either. But it can feel that way when you can't talk to them and see them regularly. Many, many days and nights passed. The three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. I wish I could make a cradle for him, her husband whispered. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. This manger is beautiful, she said. And suddenly the first tree knew he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One of the greatest treasures in this world is new life, isn't it? The life of a baby. Now, of course, this is a special baby. This is baby Jesus here. But every baby is beautiful and special. And so the first tree got to hold wonderful treasure just like he wanted to, but in a different way than he thought it would work out. That is often what happens in life. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into the old fishing boat. The traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out into the lake. Soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose. The little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and the rain. The tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Peace." The storm stopped as quickly as it has begun. And suddenly, the second tree knew he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. Well, look who's joined us here today. Flat Matt has come to join us. Flat Matt, you were there when Jesus calmed the sea, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
I bet that was a scary thing both for you and for the other people in the boat.
Oh, it was the scariest moment of my life.
Did you ever think that somebody could stop a storm by just saying words to it like peace?
Well, I knew God could do anything, but I had never seen something quite like this before. It had never occurred to me that he could stop just a storm.
So that's why in the book said you knew that you were carrying the King of heaven and earth, because only God could take care of something like that, couldn't he?
I knew that this man must be God or must be a prophet or something, because only someone of God could command the storm to stop.
Now, you actually wrote one of the Gospels, didn't you? You wrote about this experience.
I did. It left such an impression on me, I had to tell the world about it.
And it's because of people like you that we learn about Jesus, because you wrote about it and sold so many things about it. And so that's why in your picture we have you holding a book and a quill that people would have written with, because you wrote the Gospel of Matthew. Now, I remember one time I was super afraid. I was a kindergartner, and I got off the bus and ran into my house, and nobody was there. I was alone and frightened, and I didn't know what was going on. So you know what I did? I went and I hid. I went and hid behind a chair, and I started crying because I didn't know what else to do. But I was only there probably 10 minutes before my aunt came and got me. See, my Aunt Carol, I was supposed to get off the house at that bus stop because my parents were gone that day, but I forgot. And so they dropped me off, and I went into the house. But she, of course, knew the second I didn't get off the bus, she hopped in her car and came running over to get me. But I was so frightened, even when she came in the house and called my name, I just kept crying and hiding until she found me. It is scary to be alone. It's scary to not know what's going on. That's where a lot of people are at right now, aren't they? They don't know what's going to happen next. Things have changed so much, but we have people that look out for us. Matt, we have God that looks out for us, don't we? He protects us. He saves us from the storm, just like he did it in your story. And so we'll keep in mind that even when we're alone at home, God is with us and protecting us. Well, I'm going to let you come up here now so you can finish with the story, because I know you love hearing stories.
And especially I love stories about Jesus.
I can understand that. You wrote so many things about him. One Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hands to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. This is Jesus carrying his cross, isn't it? We see the crown of thorns. And here's the third tree. All she ever wanted to do was point to God. But now she's being used as an instrument to kill somebody. That's got to be sad. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy because of her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. And so we have on here on the mountaintop, we have the place where they grew up. There's the first tree that became this feeding trough. A manger is what we call it, where the baby Jesus was put as a baby. The second tree became the strong little fishing boat that Jesus did one of his miracles. The third tree, when anybody looks at the cross now, they think of God. So they all got what they wanted. God did grant their dreams, but in a different way than what they thought it would be. And so that is an important thing at this time. This was better than being the tallest tree in the world. You know, kids, I bet a lot of you have had birthdays and you couldn't celebrate in the same way. Some of you should be having sports and getting together in teams, and you can't do that. Some of you may have been planning to go on vacations and visit family, and now you can't do that. We still have our dreams that we want done, but oftentimes things in life get in the way. They change it. But God is still going to give us good things. In my life when I was young, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. That's what I wanted to be. Well, I never became one, but I still love the game. I got to play a lot as a kid. I've coached a lot of teams. Eventually, I played a lot of softball and made a lot of friends at softball, and I played it for years. I still got great enjoyment out of playing the game. Now, I didn't get the dream of a professional baseball player fulfilled, but I got wonderful things still. And that is what I want to remind you about today. Don't get all angry and upset just because you don't get something that you thought you needed really bad. God is going to give you what you truly need. It might be in a different way than what you think. Be open to God being in your life. And remember that God is always with us and we're never alone. Isn't that right, Matt?
That is right. Remember, God loves you very much and he knows what's best.
God knows what's best. So for your assignment today, I want you to talk to one of your parents and ask them what they wanted to be when they grew up, and ask them if God hasn't given them even something better than what they first thought they wanted to be, because that's the way it worked in the book, and that's the way it happens in life. God has better things planned for us, dreamed for us, than what we're dreaming ourselves. You guys have a good day, and may God bless you.